Coming up this week, we've got Dele Alli's competitive return to football at Como. We bring you an exclusive interview with Palermo's Kristoffer Lund and a deep dive into Sassuolo. But first, to Serie A, the tabletoppers Napoli, to discuss the job that Antonio Conte and co are doing. I'm David Farini. I'm delighted to say that joining me are the Destination Calcio writers, Emmet Gates and Dan Cancian. Hope we're well, boys. We were there on the weekend to see what was possibly the game of the season. Serie A at its greatest. Epic football at the Gevis Stadium. Was that a title decider? Emmet, I'll throw to you.
I wouldn't necessarily say it's a title decider, but I think it rules Atalanta out of the race. They simply had to win that to keep up with Inter and Napoli. Obviously, Inter had 2 games in hand, so it was important that Atalanta won. Obviously, it didn't go that way, so I think it's not a title decider. I don't think, obviously, Napoli have a very difficult run of games coming up, but I do think, sadly, probably for the neutral, it rules Atalanta out of the title race. So I do think we've lost a horse in the 3-horse race.
What a spectacle it was. The passion, you could feel it, like it was palpable. The tension before the game. That Napoli section, the Settore Ospiti, was stacked. Sardines crammed into there. I think there was a few extras.
There was more people than seats.
Yeah. And you know, Retegui scoring first, going over to the Atalanta Ultras right next to the Napoli fans. And you could see that, you know, were they expecting another 3-0 result in Atalanta's favour? That was a 6-pointer. You know, the Bergamaschi ready to continue the job on, go to 2-0, 3-0. Napoli coming back. McTominay, huge goal from him. I think he's on 5 goals now. Every goal was unbelievable.
5 goals, and every one of them were spectacular.
Retegui's, Politanos.
Yeah.
I mean, the keepers didn't even see those. They were just shot into the roof of the nets, and it was ruthless. It reminded me of the old Batti days, or maybe a bit of Claudio Caniggia, seeing as we're in Bergamo there. But let's go to X. British players used to struggle in Italy. Have they changed? Have they changed, or has Italy changed? That's from KB Scott on X.
I wouldn't necessarily say that British players struggle in Italy. There just wasn't that many of them that made the journey out. You know, if you think of, obviously, Gaza is a famous case, didn't do that well at Lazio, but Paul Ince was a success. And then really in the 2000s, there wasn't many. You know, David Beckham obviously had his 2 spells. It
was the odd stint,
Milan.
Wasn't there?
Yeah. And then
it was Hart, the goalkeeper at Torino.
Yeah, exactly. But now I think you're seeing more.
There's a block.
Yeah, now you got Tammy Abraham at Roma, and now Milan. You know, you've Fabio Tomori, and now you've got Scott McTominay, Billy Gilmore, obviously just Doig at Sassuolo. I think also you're seeing British players are more adventurous in trying a new league. Obviously, there's a lot of them have, like Jadon Sancho, for example, at the Bundesliga. So I do think they understand now that the world is a bigger place, and they're given, because famously British players just wanted to play in England, but I think now you're seeing that sense of adventure, and now you're getting, obviously as a result of that, more British players playing in Serie A, playing in the 5 major European leagues. So I wouldn't necessarily say that they've changed, but they're just being more adventurous in their choices.
I do think that he also speaks volume for the importance of coaching, because McTominay is doing so well because of Conte.
Yeah.
It's funny because we get into this weird situation where, okay, if an English player is going, or a British player is going to Serie A, he must be doing well because the league isn't that great. And if a Serie A player comes to England, well, he's not doing well because Serie A isn't that great and it's a step up. But I think that he often just about the coaching. You see, Joshua Zirkzee, for example, he was superb for Bologna last season. He has struggled at United. And does that come back to a step up in the league, or is he down to coaching? Likewise for McTominay, he's moved over there and he's looked a lot better than he was over here. How much of that is down to the difference in levels between the Premier League and Serie A, and how much of that is down to actually have a manager who has a clear tactical plan? He wanted him. Conte said it last month, we want McTominay, I want to bring him in because I knew how to get the best of him. I think that's a big part of it as well.
And you've written about that on destinationculture.com. Go check out those articles. I was going to throw to you, Dan, originally about the football culture. It's a global shift, and it's also about right place, right time. Not every player should play at that club, especially with that coach. Like you said, Conte looks for specific personalities, specific traits, And that's what we see now when it comes to scouting. The data sets they're using goes on forever and ever and ever. And we can now see smaller clubs implementing that and then improving over the seasons, season by season. We've seen the clubs coming up from Serie B as well. Speaking of football culture and that mindset, we're going to attack that in a second. First of all, Khvicha Kvaratskelia's departure. Now, it hasn't had much of an effect on the pitch, especially because he was out. He was only available off the bench once or twice in the last five or six games. But what can you see coming for Napoli now, Emmet?
Well, just to kind of circle back to the victory, I think the win over Atalanta was all the more impressive considering going into the game, all the talk was of Kvaratskhelia and his departure, and it kind of overshadowed Napoli's preparation leading into the big game. And I wrote about, last week for Destination Calcio, he's not been that important to Napoli this season. 5 goals, 3 assists, in 16, 17 odd games. I don't think for this season at least he's not going to be that big of a miss considering Napoli are only playing once a week, bar the odd Coppa Italia game. So I do think Napoli have enough in them to keep going in the title race. But obviously they've been linked with Alejandro Garnacho at Man United. Whether that happens or not, it's a different story. But I do think it left a bitter taste in Neapolitan mouths the way that he left mid-season. Why not stay for this season, win another Scudetto and leave as a hero? I do think his legacy is tarnished slightly, but I don't think, honestly, Napoli will miss him.
Yeah, at this point, their performances haven't suffered from Kvaratskhelia, even through his injury issues. He's had them every single season. You could argue that in that first season under Spalletti had a plan. He brought him in. He was relatively unknown at the time. And we saw by February when Milan defeated Napoli 4-0 at the Maradona that season, the scales started to shift and Kvaratskhelia was found out. Well, not that he's found out on a one-on-one level because we know that he'll blitz anyone one-on-one.
Yeah, they basically just doubled up on him.
And every team would love to have him. But yeah, but they played a kind of lateral man-marking system where there'd be 3 guys. We could see someone like Bennacer go and double up with Calabria on him and everyone was like, well, Calabria had him in his pocket. I don't think so. It was just that, well, it was Calabria, Bennacer, and also Tomori or Kaya, whoever was there in support. You're going to triple team someone. No one's going to get out of that. We've seen what happened with Lukaku on the weekend. Let's go to the next tweet. Put up a provocative tweet while we were at the game, boys. Kvara who? He's the guy who brought the Scudetto after Maradona. That is in reply to a tweet I put up with Kvara who. Look how Scott McTominay makes Napoli fans feel. And it's not in a go at Khvicha at all. It's not, because we know what he's done for Napoli over the years and he is part of that group that brought glory to Napoli. But let's be honest, we're talking about in context. There's a week where he's left and it hasn't really affected them. They were still able to pull together mentally, collectively as a team and come together and win a match in Bergamo. We've seen what Atalanta have done to teams in the Champions League there. We saw Arsenal struggle. Napoli have come there after a 3-0 shellacking in Naples, and they've gone there and pulled that off in possibly what was the best Serie A match of the season. Dan, the relationship with Aurelio De Laurentiis, how do you think it's finished there with Khvicha?
Well, I don't know how it ended with between Kvara and De Laurentiis, but I do think that his departure, or more to the point, any potential replacement will define the relation between De Laurentiis and Conte. Conte's made it clear that he doesn't want just any player to replace him. He wants a talented player. He wants a big signing. De Laurentiis is notoriously, should we say, reluctant to spend money, not less. And at the same time, though, Conte forced his hand in the summer, didn't he? He said that we need to overhaul the squad. They did, with Lukaku, David Neres, McTominay, Buongiorno coming in. I do feel that Conte could probably win the Scudetto without a replacement for Kvara because Napoli play once a week. But come the end of the season, he would be telling De Laurentiis, we've sold him, we need to bring in a big name. Particularly because Napoli pretty much, almost, the Champions League spot is pretty much, it's in their pocket.
You think it's sewn up? And there is an injury concern around Politano. We've seen David Neres now coming to his own. He's had the time to adapt and assimilate into that squad. There could be an issue, seeing as the other backup is Spinazzola, and he's been linked to a move as well away from Naples. The other one is Mazzocchi, that Conte was using a lot at the start of the season before he worked out his favorite, strategy and formation. So in that regard, Napoli may need an extra hand up forward on those flanks, because we've seen Neres, unlike Kvaratskhelia, he can adapt to the right wing. We saw Spinazzola start the game before on the left, and he did a great job. We were in Florence to see that as well. For those of you who want to go and follow our socials, go and follow us at Destination Calcio on Facebook, YouTube. On Twitter, though, it is at DSTN Calcio. Let's move on. Speaking of football culture and the mindset, there's a player that's just made a comeback, and he's going to end up playing for Como in Serie A. Dele Alli, big name, 100 million euro valuation back at his peak in 2017. Hasn't played professionally since February 2023. Now, can he bring, we've got behind me here a Como shirt, vintage Como, that's mid-80s, the Mattioli shirt, number 10. Can he help Como get a footing in Serie A, stay in Serie A for a period of time, because it is a newly promoted club? What can he bring? There's been an interview on the Overlap recently. He came out to Gary Neville, didn't he, a couple of years ago, and he had that chat about some issues in his life. We won't go into all of them, but he hasn't played professionally since then. We've got a comment from Northern Soul 90 on X saying it's a superb signing, Como going places. What are your thoughts on that, Emmet?
Serie A is, as we all know, a famously difficult league to adapt to. It's very tactical. It's like a game of chess. So, and the fact that he's coming in mid-season is not going to make it easy for him. He could contribute, but I think you may see the best of Dele Alli next season when he gets a full pre-season in his legs. Obviously, he works with Fabregas. He understands what tactical positions he wants him to play. So it is a gamble. It may work, it may not. But yeah, I think it's an interesting signing from Como's perspective.
Let's throw it down here. I've got a question for you. You probably want to say a piece here, because you've watched a lot more Premier League than I have in your time at Tottenham. Absolutely sensational the way he played from that attacking midfield role. Sometimes on the left, he could get around the back of defenders, long balls over the top. He could control them, bring them down. We saw him score on debut for England against Loris, his old Tottenham teammate. England, France, he's scored big goals at Wembley. Now, we're a long way away from that. That was a decade ago when he debuted. What can he produce in 2025?
I do think the best we can hope out to this sign for Como is for Dele to be back enjoying his football, which is not it's a cliche, but as you mentioned, he's gone through a lot of hard times of late. And I mean, the interview he did with Gary Neville, I thought it was brilliant how he had like the strength, the inner strength of sort of opening himself up. The main thing is just for him to be enjoying his football.
28 years old.
Yes, that's the thing. Because I don't think, to be fair, that like neither Everton nor Besiktas where there are places for him to succeed. I think Everton, the Premier League, we know that the attention there is on players, and he was an England international. I don't think he was set up for success. Then again, who is at Everton these days? Besiktas, they're a big team. There's
2 goals in 13 games.
Yeah, there is a lot of expectation. Them Como instead, I think is he's got nothing to lose. Como have nothing to lose by signing him. I think it may well work for him, and it's onto a winner anyway, because he's going to be playing in Serie A. If he does well, may even put himself back into contention for an England call up. Who knows? Thomas Tuchel said that he hasn't ruled out calling any players up, so I don't see why he wouldn't.
Well, he's been out for so long. Could be look. There's a couple of points I want to make. Exposure therapy, getting him back involved. Obviously, Como, any Serie A club that's going to bring back a player that hasn't played for a couple of seasons, 2 years, it'll be next month that he hasn't played a competitive game. However, probably a long-term project like Como itself is a long-term project. Come from 4th division. It's about building their brand. It's about making players flourish. We can see, certain clubs, they go out and get specific scouts to find players with the right traits, the right mindset. And obviously, Dele Alli hasn't had the recent history, especially post-lockdown, that era there, where he hasn't been able to play much. He had to change his environment. It was about going to another landscape, at Besiktas. Now he's got his chance in Como. Now, is this a chance where he can be taken under Fabregas's wing? just be part of the squad, slowly immerse himself in, and perhaps be made to flourish in 2025-26?
Yeah, I think that's his best option. As you know, as I said, he's not going to be the main man. He's going to be part of the squad, potentially a fringe player to start with, because as we said, he hasn't played football in 2 years. I think that's probably the best scenario for him. You know, as you said, he's going to be given time. He's not going to be asked to, you know, produce on a week in, week out basis. He's not going to be asked to come in and like turn the club's fortunes around because they made so many of the signings. He's going to be one of the players who could help Como stay up. But I agree with them, Matt. He needs to regain fitness because, you know, not playing football for 2 years is a long time.
I think that the fact that he's been training with the club since December, he's obviously proven to a certain degree that
They've done their due diligence.
Yeah, that he's physically fit with the demands of the league. But I do think on a tactical level, we have seen British players in the past come and struggle with the tactical nature of Serie A because it is a very tactical league. So he is going to need time. And the fact that he has an 18-month contract means I think we might see the best of him next season when he's got a pre-season under his belt.
I agree, Emmet. And we saw Como rattle Udinese 2-1, both teams down to 10 men. But can you imagine Dele Alli, maybe not at his peak, but coming back 28, 29, he'll be more mature, perhaps a different mindset. Nico Paz pinging a long ball over the top, chesting down, doing the old Farini, bottom corner. Wish him all the best. And Como on fire. DestinationCalcio.com. And for those of you who don't know, we are the official broadcaster, proud to be the official broadcaster of Lega B, Serie B, Italian football for free on our app. You should download that for iOS and for Android. I was fortunate enough recently to meet up with one of the players making a massive impact in the league, Palermo's Kristoffer Lund. We started by talking about how the American international and Danish native has embedded himself into Italian life.
Of course, the Sicilian Italian culture is very different from the Danish culture. So it took some time to get used to, but I would say I've embraced it a lot. I put a lot of effort into trying to learn the language because I know how important it is to learn the language and to be able to adapt in the the circumstances or the country that you're in, to understand the culture, everything. Still got room for improvement, but I'm learning gradually.
We might see if you've got some Italian in you a little bit later on in this chat here. You were saying that you were playing in Sweden before you won the title there. You were nearly relegated with Häcken.
Yeah.
That winning mentality, you were able to learn a lot. Is that something you feel that you could bring to Palermo?
Of course. I mean, there's always the hunger to wanting more and to winning. And as I humbly learned when I won the championship in Sweden is that there's not a lot of players that in their actual career experience winning a championship or a trophy. So of course coming here I knew that would be a very important perspective or thing to have experienced before that, to be able to display kind of what you think is needed. But at the same time I know that there's a lot of guys in the team that has experienced that as well. So yeah, we've got a good group.
And you've got guys from all echelons of football. You've come from Sweden, there's other guys from other countries. You've got people that played at very high levels, European trophies, world trophies. Is there a good mix between the collective?
I would say yeah. I mean, of course, there are, as a reason, a lot of Italians, but this year also a lot of French guys. Last year I had one Danish guy that I could join, which was nice in the beginning, but I can also see that after he left this summer, that him not being here, I don't really have the same kind of social anchor that I always can go to. So it's more widened up a bit, and I would say I'm a bit more open for stuff. Normally I'm very short-circled regarding that, but I would say I've improved this year.
You can watch that interview in full on Destination Calcio's YouTube channel and soon to be on the Destination Calcio TV app. Now, Lund, stats are pretty good heading his way. Alessio Dionisi dispersing him down that left flank. Dan, you were there in Palermo with me when we did that interview, but the day before we saw them up against Catanzaro. What are your thoughts on Lund?
Lund is probably one of the last of the what I call the great dependable fullbacks. Someone who's not a modern fullback by any stretch of imagination. It's not like a throwback to the old days of the Catenaccio either, but it's just does what it says on the tin. It's up and down the left flank. And it's been one of Palermo's most consistent players this season. And, you know, to be fair, there have not been many Palermo players who've been consistent this season. I think there is something to be said, as Kristoffer mentioned to us in Palermo, about how playing in Serie B has already helped him so much at international level because of how difficult the league is, how tactical it is, and because of the caliber of opponents that he comes up against on a weekly basis. I thought that was really interesting. You know, the sort of the hindsight that we obviously don't get because we're not players, but you know, from a professional standpoint, having that knowledge of, you know, coming up against someone who's that good that makes you feel you're more prepared to take on players at international level. I thought that was very interesting.
Yeah, well, Mauricio Pochettino is international coach. We're going to see if Kristoffer Lund can make the American squad for the World Cup. They're joint hosts. That set up in Sicily for him, that training centre, outstanding. It's state of the art, guys. You've seen, we'll roll the video for you, Emmet. What do you think?
Yeah, look, very impressive. Obviously, Palermo now, they're part of the City Group, and there's investments made, and yeah, it looks, you know, by Italian standards, it's very modern, very impressive. So, yeah, obviously, him, Lund, being in that environment is going to improve him as a player, and obviously playing in Serie B will make him progress, and hopefully he can forge his way into the US men's national team over the coming 6 months to a year.
Well, Palermo back in the top 8 calculations. I think they're 5th at the moment after that win. They beat US Stabia in that 6-pointer over the weekend, and Lund playing his role. He started for Dionisi in that lineup, and you can watch the live games, as we've already said, on Destination Calcio TV. Get the app now. Jordan Allen on X says, "This is absolutely class. I can finally watch Bari games now." Showing Bari this weekend. Sean on X, "Will games that are streamed be available to watch on demand for a short period?" Indeed they will, my friend. So make sure you keep getting on the app and seeing the 3 games that we show each week. You can go back as well. It's not just this week. Plenty of games on there. And moving on, let's talk about Sassuolo, because Dan's written a couple of articles about them this season. In fact, we all have, but we do write those Serie B sort of look backs and look forward to the next week. We're showing Spezia against Sassuolo this weekend. But first, Dan, your thoughts on Fabio Grosso's side. How have they been going? I mean, not too bad.
Well, not too bad. It's an understatement. They started off slowly, but when they hit their strides, and they've been an absolute. They've steamrolled the competition. I think it's fair to say they're top of the league. They're the top scorer in Serie B. They average over 2 goals per game, which in a league where, you know, as we all know, goals can be at a premium at times. It just shows you how good they are. Grosso's done this before, of course. You know, he took Frosinone up 2 seasons ago, and there are incredible similarities because Frosinone went top of the table 10 games into the season, and they never looked back. And I don't think Sassuolo will be looking back either. You know, they've been top of the league.
They're already looking forward.
Yeah, they've been top of the league since November. They lost to Pisa on Boxing Day, and Pisa are probably the only team who could deny them top spot this season.
Well, Emmet, they've got the man Domenico Berardi. This is part of the Calciatori magazine that we picked up in Bergamo last weekend. But look, these kind of players like Berardi here, Torsvet, Mulattieri up forward, Lauriente. I mean, that is a Serie A side, yes, indeed. So, Emmet, looking forward to this weekend.
Yeah,
Spezia.
Yeah, exactly. It's first against third, you know, and I think it's a must-win. Kind of the similarities with the Atalanta Napoli game that we went to last weekend. Spezia need a win to kind of keep on the coattails of Pisa and Sassuolo at the top. There's 10 points separating both teams, but if Sassuolo win this, you like to think Spezia is going to find it difficult to catch. Certainly Sassuolo, they're not far back from Pisa, but yeah, it'll be a cracking game. Both teams like to attack. Obviously Sassuolo scoring goals for fun. You've got Berardi, who's by far and away probably the most talented player in the league. Should be in Serie A playing for a team in the top 10, but he stayed loyal to Sassuolo.
Well, for those of you new to Calcio, new to Italian football, Domenico Berardi, yes, he won the Euros in 2020 with Italy under Roberto Mancini, but he is coming back from a lengthy layoff.
Yeah.
So that's why a big part of Sassuolo's downfall as well was Berardi being injured for a lot of last season, and now Fabio Grosso taking over. We've now seen Luca D'Angelo take over Spezia. It's the best defence, Spezia at home at the Alberto Pico against Sassuolo. Best attack, Dan. How do you see this going?
I think Spezia could pull off a surprise here, purely because if there is one kind of team that Sassuolo struggle against, a team that don't just sit back, but sit back with an actual plan. That's what Spezia have been doing. They've been so good at it. They defend. They are really difficult to break down, but they are not just happy with sitting back. They want to eat you on the counter. They want to lead sort of damage. And if you go back to the game on Boxing Day against Pisa, I think that's what won Pisa the game. Pisa didn't just set out to like draw or like close the Sassuolo down. They were like, okay, we're not going to let you score, but we're going to be eating you on the counter. We're going to like try and sort of put you on the back foot. And no team has really been able to do it to Sassuolo this season.
And Pisa were at home that game as well. Sassuolo on the road again.
No team has done that this season, largely because how good Sassuolo are. As you said, they are effectively a Serie A side playing in Serie B.
Pumped 5 against Südtirol. And look, even if you sit back, there's always a player like Josh Doig that's going to get you from outside the box and thunderbolt you into the top left corner like he did on the weekend.
There is, and I think that Spezia would be sort of encouraged by the fact that Südtirol scored 3 goals against Sassuolo, because Sassuolo have also been really good defensively, and conceding 3 goals at home to a side like Südtirol, with all due respect, they've not exactly been scoring goals for fun this season. You know, you would like to think that Spezia will sort of draw some inspiration for that, a bit of encouragement, if nothing else.
Also, Südtirol took the lead, so
they did. I mean, that'll be good, because if you go away to the top of the team, top of the league, and you score 3 times and you come away with nothing.
That was a crazy game. It was 2-1 at half time to Südtirol.
Yeah.
And ended up 5-3. So there was a rain of goals in the second half.
What did they say? Pioggia di gol, partita pazzesca. So
obviously, Josh Doig's goal was the pick of the bunch. Thunderbolt outside of the left foot, top corner from 25, 30 yards.
And that's the thing with Sassuolo. Like, it's not that, you know, you always say, oh, you don't know what goals are going to come from. Well, you don't in Sassuolo's case, because they have so many players who can score, and literally, like, they have 4 of the top 10, of the top 15 scorers in the league. Berardi hasn't even been scoring goals for fun.
Yeah,
but
he's got 4.
He's got 4, but like, you know, he leads like in, as to use a very modern football term, goal involvements. I believe that's what they're called these days. And you know, it just sets him up for his teammate. And you know, you can close 2 down, but you've got someone else pop it up. It's just hard. It's impossible for other teams to stop them, I think.
Spezia hosting Sassuolo Friday night. Saturday's game that we're showing is Mantova hosting Sampdoria, one of the biggest teams, former greats, Roberto Mancini, Gianluca Vialli days. The Sampdoriani, they're in desperate need of a win there, boys. Mantova, though, could extend their gap over Sampdoria, affirm their place in the mid-table. And then Sunday, Cremonese, who are just teetering on the brink of the top 4, are hosting Modena. That's it this week from me, David Farini, Emmet Gates and Dan Kantian. Thank you for your attendance. You can contact us on our individual X profiles. I am at David Farini _ Emmet.
I am at Emmet Gates.
Dan.
And I am at Dan _Kantian.
And of course, there's a Destination Calcio page at DSTN Calcio for everything Italian football and culture. Serie B is coming your way this week. Have a look at our YouTube channels as well. We've got plenty of good content on there. We do those destinations with everything you need to know. We've just put up the Bergamo video from the weekend. You can see Emmet stuffing his face with pizza, a bit of rock, scissor, papers between the boys, and of course, the fans at the Gevis Stadium. Immaculate town, the Città Alta, Città Bassa. Join us every Thursday on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. And remember, the destination is always Calcio.